Okay, so before we actually start getting set up, let's talk about a couple things that you're going to want to put on the walls first. So let me ask you a question. Have you ever been to a house or seen someone's video where the paint starts peeling off the wall? Well, the reason is, it's a couple reasons. One, it's because they sanded it and they didn't wipe the walls down, so it's all dusty, and they didn't use a good primer or PVA. And I'm going to explain that right now. You can't just throw paint on the wall. You know, it's if it's a small patch, if it's small areas, if you're touching up some stuff, you know, that's fine. And when I say touch up, I mean maybe like nail marks, nail holes, screw holes, maybe a couple of like dashes or whatnot, you can kind of touch up. But if it's anything that's bigger than, I'll say maybe 3x3 or 4x4, you're gonna want to put at least a primer. If it's an entire room and you have fresh texture or fresh drywall, I highly recommend a PVA. So what's the difference? So if you put nothing on the walls and water hits it, water has so much liquid to it, I guess you can say, that it'll just smear that texture off, where it'll ruin the texture and it'll go back to the drywall. You'll see that when, you know, people have water damage in their houses, or a water heater bust or something, and it's because those walls weren't protected. Now when you roll the paint on it, it has a different viscosity that allows that paint to actually adhere to the texture, and instead of it just having it run down, it's actually going to protect the texture and the drywall, so when water does get splashed up against it, there's a coating now that does it. Well, the difference between the paint and the PVA is the PVA is kind of a thin down mud, kind of. I mean, it's probably not, but I'm just going to explain it this way. PVA is a thin down mud, and like a primer, but it doesn't have the same contents that a paint primer would have. So this just gives it more of a coating, a covering. So if you put this first, your paint's going to go a lot further. You're going to get a lot more out of your paint because you're already putting something down. And if you paint raw texture, that paint is just going to eat it up. It's going to suck it up. It's going to eat it up. So you're going to get less out of what you could normally get if you had a primer put on it. So again, if you're doing a whole room, if you're doing a, you know, anything more than just a couple of patches, and the patches are significant or fairly large, I would say use a PVA. It doesn't matter what brand it is. You can go Sherwin-Williams, you can do Valspar, you can do Benjamin Moore, you know, Behr. PVA is usually across the board the same. It's just going to give it added protection and added an added coat, I guess. And then you're going to want to go with your paint. Now your paint, I will say you need to pick your brand and pick it right, because some brands you get what you pay for kind of thing. So this is going to help protect it and help this to go longer. Okay, so in this video I kind of want to show you how to mix up your paint, I guess. So if it's been sitting for a while, what happens is all the pigment or the color, it'll settle down to the bottom. So whenever you open up a can of paint, you're going to see that it's been separated, and you'll see, like, if it's a darker color, there's going to be a black or whatever that color is going to be separated from the other colors. So you have to mix that up, obviously, so that way you can paint. So there's a couple ways you can do that. There's a way that's called boxing, where you have an empty 5-gallon bucket, and then you have your full 5-gallon, and you're going to pour it back and forth, and that's called boxing. So you're going to take this one, you're going to pick it up, you're going to dump into this one, you're going to pick it back up, you're going to dump into this one, and you're going to do that a couple of times, and then that way it mixes it up and gets it all stirred up. Another way is obviously having a paint paddle. I don't do that, I don't have one of those, but you can get a paint paddle with the drill, just like I did when I mixed the mud, but it's a paddle that's made for paint, and you can sit there and you can drill that, and you can get that. I don't have one of those. Another one is the easy, simple 5-gallon stir stick or a 1-gallon stir stick. Those are usually free at Home Depot or Lowe's. You can get them when you get your paint, and you can just stir it that way. And then another way is just kind of boxing it within itself. So you can just kind of, you're going to shake it. You're just going to kind of flip it around. You're just getting that pigment to get mixed up in there. Now, side note, this is white, and I'm probably not going to be putting paint on this. I'm just going to put the PVA so I have something to cover it. But you can actually tint your PVA or tint your primer the same color that your paint is. Like I said, it's an added coat, it's an added coverage. That took a lot out of me doing that. It's an added coat, it's an added coverage, it's an added layer. So instead of just putting white, why don't you just add the tint of whatever that color is and get it all at the same time. Say, hey, I'm getting PVA, this is the color that I'm picking for my paint. Can you tint the paint a little bit so that way it's the same color? Also, side note, if you guys are doing dark colors, red, dark greens, blues, purples, you're going to want to go with the gray. I don't want to say black, but at least the gray primer. Do not go with white. If you put a white primer or a white base and then you try to put red or you try to put a dark color on top of it, it never comes out good. I'm not a professional painter, so I don't know exactly the whole reason behind it. All I know is that we always use gray or a darker primer first. So you could do a darker PVA. Let's say you're going to do like a red, or you're going to do a dark green or a dark blue. I would ask them to tint your PVA as a gray, and then put your paint on top of that. That's also going to hide a lot of stuff, and it's going to help the actual color go a lot further. And the same thing with the 1 gallon. You can just, you know, shake it around. And just get it mixed up. I'm not too worried because it's white, so it can't be separated that much. All right, that's it for boxing. Okay, I want to do a little bit of a close-up so you can see a couple of these tools. When you get a gallon can, you can use a screwdriver, a flathead screwdriver, obviously, and that'll help pry it open. I want to say Home Depot gives these for free. I don't know if Lowe's gives them for free, but this is called a church key. And a church key will actually do the same thing, where it's going to it fits right underneath the lip, the little key thing. It goes right in there, and then it pops it up. You know, same thing, you can use a flathead screwdriver, it'll just go in there. But sometimes the flathead will tear up these edges. Sometimes the flathead, as you're prying it, it kind of tears up the edges and makes it harder when you pound it back in. So the church key, you just get it in there and it pops it up real easy. Okay, and then for this one, so on here, there's usually a notch somewhere. You're gonna see this big notch, okay? And they usually have an arrow showing you the direction. So you're gonna take a knife, or you can take a 5-in-1, and you're just gonna, I'm gonna break that right there, okay? And then you can go ahead and pull this off. You're gonna flip up these sides. Oh, beautiful, beautiful. Okay, so that's it. So these little tools will help you. Church key, utility knife, or you can use a screwdriver or a 5-in-1 just to help you open up your paints.